So, give me some.
What are they weird? I'd like to speak.
Okay, so we can get started. Thank you all for coming today. Today, Jennifer Perkins of IDC will talk about designing documents with an access ramp.
Okay.
For the online people, Jennifer will try to remember to repeat any questions from the audience. If that doesn't happen, I'm going to try to type your questions. If you have any questions, I'll be moderating the session, so please use the chat feature to ask some questions, and I'm going to ask Jennifer. And with that, we can get started. Thank you.
Thanks, Nadine. Like Nadine said, I will try to remember to repeat the question, but I am getting older, so sometimes. Like Nadine said, this presentation, and it's a workshop presentation, so we're going to be doing a little bit on the computer if we have time, and also we have time for pitches, so it might end up being more like presentation, and you guys can contact me if you have questions. So we'll see how it works. This is designing documents with an access ramp, and the idea of this is that when you're creating digital documents, and you're creating documents that you're going to share with your students on Blackboard or elsewhere on the internet or just via computer, and you're not expecting them to necessarily print the document out, these documents should be accessible to all of your audience. And it may surprise you that not everybody can access the documents you think are perfectly good. We're doing this for two reasons. First off, this is ADA Awareness Month, so we are cognizant of the fact that all of our audience is important, whatever disability they may have. So this presentation kind of helps us to meet that goal of meeting the needs of our audience. Secondly, we should be interested in designing such documents simply because I think all of us want to be sure that everybody we hand the document to really can read it. We make assumptions that don't always turn out to be the case. So I think we want to do it just because it's the good thing, the right thing, the reasonable thing to do. So to get started, the pitch that we have is that I'm presenting on a Mac, and I'm not a Mac user, so my version of PowerPoint is not the version I was planning to use, so things could get a little bit weird, but I'll do the best I can. And if you have questions at any time, feel free to ask. I can't even swear we'll get through the entire presentation because this is only an hour long, and there's a lot of stuff to cover. But I put the most important stuff at the front end, so I think we get through the things we really need to. The first thing I want to do is, for those in the physical audience, I'm going to hand you a document here. This is a syllabus from an actual course. Let's see, it's 2 pages long.
Are you saying that somebody typed it like that?
Well, we'll get to that. This is one version of a syllabus. And this is an actual course that's going on right now in Fall B. And I do have permission from the instructor to use this content, by the way. But this is not the syllabus that we use to answer the various questions. This is simply one version of it. For those of you via Zoom, you'll see the first page of it. And I would ask you, when you look at this document, which is an actual syllabus, can you read that? I mean, would it be an issue for you to read this document at all? Did I kind of, yes. Okay.
Can you? Yes, you can. But can you gain information from it quickly and easily? No, it's very difficult.
Why is it difficult to use?
Formatting. It's just.
There is no formatting, right? There's nothing. It's just plain text. You've got to read from the very first word, left, right, top, bottom. You don't know where any sections are. It's practically impossible to use. Okay? I'm going to hand you a second version. And when I refer to these in the future, I'll be referring to versions 1, 2, and 3. And that's how we'll keep them straight. And as you look at this one, let me make this accessible to those of you in the web conference. This is the first page of what the second version looks like. you guys in the session actually get the full syllabus. Lucky for me, I made just enough copies. Okay. How is this one, for those of you who can see, and I'm guessing everybody in the physical classroom here can actually see the syllabus, how does this look to you? Does it look pretty good?
Well
Why?
laid out,
Why does it look okay?
very well laid out, clear sections.
Okay, for clear sections, you've got headers, right? You've got some headers, you've got subheaders, and you've got even subheaders under that, okay? Everything seems to be laid out well. Keep that in mind, it seems to be, okay? I've got a third version for you that's, I think you're gonna find is not a whole lot different from the second version. Okay. And when you look at that second version, I did want to ask, do you see anything that doesn't look so good about it?
I just noticed all the black section.
Okay, the shape at the top, that box in particular, is not great because for people who have low vision, that could be really bad color contrast, okay? And for me, the font that's used under the instructor information is not really good, okay? The third version, which I did not bring up for those in the web conference, looks like this. Okay, does this one look pretty good? For the same reasons, basically, that you like version 2, right? It's got sections.
Bigger.
Yeah, the headers are bigger. There's still subheaders and subheaders under that, but everything looks pretty good. Okay. So for now, we'll say, okay, version number 1 is pretty much unacceptable, right? I don't think anybody's going to do that. Okay. So WebAIM is an organization that promotes web and digital accessibility. And they state, and this is one thing I want you to keep in mind, that screen readers and other assistive technologies, and I'm really just thinking about screen readers right now, they largely ignore the visual styling and focus primarily on semantics and structure. Versions 2 and 3 to you visually looked decent, right? They might not be perfect, but they're in pretty good shape. But if I compare those two, I've got version 2 on the left, version 3 on the right, and I read each of these with a screen reader. I'm not going to read the full syllabus to you, but I'm going to let you listen to recordings of the JAWS screen readers reading these two. I'm going to read version 1 first. Listen carefully.
Graphic echo 2 inches wide by 0.954 inches high. Course description. Catalog description. Examines the relationship between religion and politics in the world from such different perspectives as public opinion, voting behavior, institutional structures, political economy, and slasher policy making. Prerequisite N 102, 105 left parent B right parent, or on 102. Overview.
Okay.
Secular.
What stands out to you in that when you listen to that report?
I picked out very little content and a whole lot of jibber jabber that was very new to me.
It's reading the stuff, right? Except, did you notice it drops from telling you the logo all the way down to course description? Okay. This is the first thing I want to teach you about using Microsoft Word. When you visually look at that syllabus, you see all of the header 1 information, that it's political science 346. You see a lot of instructor info. Someone using a screen reader doesn't even know that exists, that section exists. That's because when those were inserted, when that content was inserted, I used the insert text box feature. I drew my text boxes, I typed my stuff in. And what happens there is that when a screen reader reads, it reads basically the canvas. When you drop the text box on it, you're basically dropping another layer on top of that canvas, and a screen reader typically cannot read those text boxes. So rule 1, if you can possibly keep from it, don't use the pretty little text boxes. You can still format your stuff, as you'll see in the third example. You can still put borders around things and shade things in if you need to, but don't use text boxes to do it. When I read example 3, listen to this one.
Graphic Echo Online logo 2 inches wide by 0.954 inches high. Heading level 1 poll 346 : Religion and Politics in the World Fall B20178 week term October 18th through December 15th. Heading level 2 Instructor Information. Karamozan Kalkin
Okay,
P8.
there, it's reading everything. Admittedly, it's not reading it beautifully, but it's reading all the information you need it to read. And if you notice, it's not just reading, it's reading headers and everything else. So you know exactly how this page is structured. And that's the whole point of this workshop. You have to structure your documents accurately. So in this workshop, what we're going to cover, hopefully, I have a feeling we won't get all the way through, we're going to look at styles, which is the thing I really want to focus on here. We're going to look at putting links in your documents, which is a pretty simple thing, but it's necessary. Tables, whether or not to use tables, and how to do that. Placing images, what you need to know to put images in your documents, and when you use color in your documents. Now, again, this is focusing on digital documents. If you're just putting something together to hand out and print, that's a different story. But typically, you need a digital copy for your students or for whoever your audience is. So with styles, what I'd like to do is focus a little bit on using headers and other what's called quick styles. Using typefaces, proper sizes for your type, and so on. When you go into Word, whether you're using Windows or a Mac, typically you probably open up your document or create a new document, and you probably use these tools a lot, right? The font and paragraph things. If you want to bold something, you typically hit that bold button. Italicize, you're going to hit that I button. You might change your typeface from Calibri or to Cambry or something like that. Change your font size and so on. And as long as you're not considering my audience needs to be able to access this, that's not a bad thing. But when you start thinking, I need to be sure the screen reader is going to read all my headers, all my content the way I want it to, this is not adequate. What you need to do is use something called Microsoft Quick Styles. I've got a 1-minute video here that kind of gives you a really quick view as to what that means. And I'll play it right here.
How did they get to that?
Okay, I'll show you that in just a second. When you open, you use a PC? Okay. When you open up your Word application, at the top under Home, you should see a number of styles that you can select for your document. That's what the Quick Styles is. On a Mac, because I'm not a Mac user, I'm not very good at this, but on a Mac, let's say.
Very similar.
Yeah, there's a button, actually it's shaded out right here. If I had text on my screen, there's a Quick Styles button here for Mac. But a PC, it's automatically laid out up there at the top as a Quick Style. So what you do is you select, okay, is the text that I am working with right now, do I want it to be a header 1, a header 2, a header 3, do I want it just to be body text? And you select what you want based on Quick Styles there. Now, you'll notice in the screenshot I have at the bottom, there's a design tab also, and this, I'm not sure how this will work on a Mac, but on a PC, there's a design tab. And under that, you actually have a selection of style sets. So let's say you open up a new document. You might look at those style sets to see which style set you like to use. It will change all the formats of your headers on Amazon.
Yeah, you said like the body texting, I get body text, right? So heading 1, heading 2, and body. Does Microsoft Word default to that body text?
But Barry just asked, when you're working, you want some body text in there and you want to format it accurately. Typically, when you open up a document, yes, it's automatically going to start out with body text style, which is typically on a PC called normal. When you open some documents, it might just be body text. I think that's like an older style, but it's basically the same thing. Now, the thing that's nice about it is that you can take any one of those quick styles you choose, whether you choose the normal, header 1, header 2, and let's say you don't like how it looks on screen. It pretty much is going to be a default when you open up your Word document. But let's say that you want a header 1, but you really like the look of header 3, okay? Don't make something a header 3 just because you think it looks pretty, okay? What you want to do is modify your header 1. And I can't easily do that on the Mac, but what I can tell you from the video clip is you go up to the style, let's say you change something to a header 1. Go up to the style that says header 1, right-click that, and choose modify. And from there, you can change whether it's Calibri, Times New Roman, whatever you want. You can change how large it is. It could be from 12 points to 120 points. You can change the spacing above a header, below a header, around text in the body text area. You can change the spacing. Anything you can do with all of those little icons when you first open up Word, you can do here. Yes, sir.
2 questions. When you modify header 1 style, is that just for that document, or is it from then on global in Microsoft?
Okay. I've got a question here. If you modify a style, does it change it just for that document, or will it happen for the rest of the documents from here on out? If you do it just for that document, then it's just for the document. But there's an option you can save it. And if you save that style using the modifications you've made, then it will apply all of it.
Question 2.
Yes.
If you're halfway through the document and want to change the way header 1 looks, does it go back and update the ones?
It will absolutely update. And that was what I was trying to show at the very end of that clip. If you change any of those styles, it's going to change every area that's got that style, which is really nice because if you try to do it manually, you're going through, if you got a 10-page document, it takes forever, and you know you're going to make mistakes somewhere. It also, but it also makes it much easier if you're planning on adding a table of contents at some point, because if you manually add a table of contents, it's a pain. If you've got your header set, there's a button for creating a table of contents, and it's out there in a couple of steps. Yes?
Debbie's asking if you can save it as a new name.
The style, if you modified it,
I assume.
I believe so, yeah.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure, yes, because you save as, and then it gives you the option for how to save it. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, Steve.
Just a quick question. You talked about using the style guide. If you don't use it and you just bold it or underline it or whatever, does the screen reader just read it as text and not as a header? Is that really the issue?
Typically, what's going to happen is, yes, it's going to read, if you have not used quick styles to say, I want this to be a certain level header, or I want this to be a, even if you do the strong, anything like that, it's just going to read it like it's body text.
Okay.
It's not going to recognize that it's special. And that's where, even when you do something in bold, it's better if you go over, typically, when you open up a Word document with quick styles, there's even a strong area. And that's typically the better one to use. Maybe if you're just making 1 or 2 little random changes in the document. A screen reader still isn't going to read that strong, but it's still better because you get to understand how somebody who uses Microsoft Word to create documents would be doing it, and they'd be using that quick style. So you're kind of learning how somebody who has to use a screen reader actually does things.
We're talking about screen readers, but also you're going to have people just with low vision, and they need things larger fonts. So that would still have an effect, a positive effect.
Absolutely. Yeah. And even the people who use screen readers are not just blind or low vision. Some people with mobility issues have to use a screen reader to be able to manipulate the computer the way they need to. So they're used for a lot of reasons. Yes.
A question from Tammy. Could you save it as a syllabus style and it would show up as such in the styles listing?
You could. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure that would. I'll show you in a second. In fact, that's the next thing I was going to bring up. Let's look at, if we're looking at these two documents again, the screen reader user has the option not just of looking at a full document, but they can use shortcuts to bring up headers, a list of headers in the document, list of links in the document, the lists in a document, things like that. If they use that shortcut, then if somebody styles something as syllabus, I'm not sure that a screen reader user would fully understand what that style means. So it might make more sense to define what you're trying to do with that style instead of just it's a syllabus. You'll notice here, I use the shortcut for headers on both the document on the left and the document on the right, and you'll notice there is no headers list for the one on the left. That's because when I styled that document, I didn't use quick styles, so there are no headers in that document. And that's why the screen reader can't find anything. On the right, though, it's brought up a nice list, and it even tells the screen reader user what level that header is. So they can see that there's header 1 called textbook. If you go on down, grading is a level 2 that would come under something else. So they can use these shortcuts to run through a syllabus or any other document, just like you would visually do. And that's where you've got to consider what's fair to them. Is it fair to throw them a syllabus or a document where basically they're just reading from beginning to end and they can't find anything without reading that entire document? It's much fairer to format things properly using styles so that they can get the information they need as quickly as you can. Now, if you want to take just a couple of seconds, if you've got a computer handy and you want to play with these quick styles, you're probably going to run into questions because I just got into the very basics of this. If you want me, let's see, actually I might have to run on because this is going to be done pretty soon. But I got into the very basics of applying these quick styles. There are lots of things you can do with these quick styles, like saving them for future documents or saving them as their own separate styles. So it's too much to get into a workshop. I mean, we could go on for a couple of hours talking about that. But if you don't want to, if you want to experiment with that while I go on with the presentation and then ask me a question in a few minutes, that's fine. I'll just continue and we'll see what happens. The next thing that I wanted to talk about, before I get on to links, I did want to bring up, we talked a little bit about this earlier, the document on the left, version 2 of the syllabus. We talked about how the text box that's very dark is not the best type of visual use in that syllabus or in that document. And it's because the color contrast is so bad. So you need to think about that. And you need to think about what fonts you use, what typefaces you use in your documents. The box just underneath with the instructor information. I've seen fonts similar to this used in documents, and it's really, really hard for me, and I have decent vision. So somebody who has low vision is going to have some major issues. So you have to think about the typefaces. Links, okay. When you're looking at putting links in your syllabus or in any other document, if it's digital, you don't really care about putting the URL in the document. You want a link there to take the person to that web page or to that document that's online. But it doesn't matter to the user what the actual web address is. And there's one good way to make things work, and that is to embed your document or embed your link in the text. So in one of the syllabi, of course I don't think I have an example here. I can't find it because I can't read this initial syllabus. But let's say you are linking to Yahoo, okay? You would put something in your syllabus or in your other document about the Yahoo website states this. You would then embed your link within that text, the Yahoo website. Okay? If you say Yahoo website located at www.yahoo.com, all that's going to be read out to the screen reader. The screen reader user doesn't care that the address is www.yahoo.com. They just want to get there. And when they use their shortcut to bring up their links list, if you look here, the document on the left, which is not the best document, does bring up a list of links, which is great, but it's listing the URLs. So if they can ask the screen reader to read those links, all they're going to hear is www.whatever. And those links can be huge. If you look at the links list on the right, you've got links like the EKU libraries, distance, and online learning webpage. That's in context. It lets them know that's where I'm going, okay? I'm going to the Title IX information webpage, not http:// So it just makes a lot more sense to embed the link inside the text. And this is an example of how you can do it in your own document. You can embed the link, and then if you think this document's going to be printed out by somebody, and something like a syllabus probably will, it's a good idea to include the URL, but include it somewhere where the screen reader user doesn't have to listen to that. So you might include it as a footnote. Okay? Put the footnote in as a URL, or put the URL in as a footnote, so that screen reader user can listen to it, because screen readers can access footnotes, at least the more recent versions can. But they don't have to if they don't. Next, let's talk a little bit about tables and putting those in digital documents. And pretty much everybody, I think, has used a table in a document. It's just for those of us who can actually see the documents, it often organizes things really nicely and really attractively. There are two kinds of tables you have to think about. One is layout, and that's if you're trying to get something to look a certain way, and this is true especially for HTML. I've done this. I can't quite get it the way I want it to look. I've got different elements, and I'm trying to line them up just so. Well, I create my little table, and I've got these cells, and then I can just rearrange them and change the width and the height of my cells, and everything looks pretty. Unfortunately, a screen reader is not going to read that well. It's going to read it left to right, top to bottom. So no matter where you've got things, it more than likely is not going to make any sense for your user. Data tables are a slightly different situation. Sometimes you have to put things in a table to make the data make sense. Sometimes you don't. One instance I've got here that kind of shows you what is bad about using tables is if you've looked at a syllabus, you've probably seen a table that looks similar to this. You've got what module or week the students are studying, the activities they're going to go on, and how much each activity is worth. And if I'm looking at this, it's like, okay, that makes sense. Activity 1 is going to be 20 points, activity 2 is 30, and so on. And this is in module 1. I go on to module 2. This all makes sense. When the screen reader reads this, here's what it says.
Module activities points Module 1 activity 1 activity 2 activity 3 20 30 40 Module 2 activity 1 activity 2 activity 3 25 20 30 Module 3 act.
Okay, that would drive me crazy if I had to read a document that sounded like that, because it doesn't make any sense. If I focused on it long enough, it might begin to make sense. But it's not going to make sense for very long. So what do you do if you've got a table like this? I recommend you don't keep it in this shape. Instead, create a list. Visually, this is just as good. This makes total sense. You've got module 1, you got 3 activities, and you know how many points there were. When a screen reader reads this, it's still going to sound kind of weird to you because it's going to include some punctuation, but it makes a lot more sense than it did before.
Module activities and points heading level 1. List of 3 items. Bullet module 1. List of 3 items nesting level 1. Bullet activity 1 left parent 20 points right parent. Bullet activity 2 left parent 30 points right parent.
And so on. This would be readable to a screen reader user. It would make some sense. You'll notice it does include a lot of punctuation, things like parentheses, which if you had to read that and you saw these, you had to read left parent, right parent, that would probably drive you crazy. There are settings in screen readers like JAWS that allow you to minimize the amount of punctuation or maximize it. You can put it on proofing so that it actually reads every piece of punctuation there. So it would kind of depend upon how that user has set up JAWS or whatever screen reader they're using. But if you just download JAWS and use it, you're going to hear quite a bit of that kind of stuff going on. And I'm guessing the typical user who doesn't maybe use screen readers a whole lot, but uses it for the documents they need to use, well, they probably don't go in and change their settings too much. But this is still a lot better than trying to use a table. If you do have to use a table, let's say that you just cannot possibly get away from that, and this slide's going to look weird at first. My animation's not working. Let's say that you have this table and you really want to keep it in this format. So it's similar to the one I just showed you, but not quite there. It has modules, topics for each module, and due dates. So there's nothing you're trying to create a relationship, a real alignment between those cells. This one would make sense, okay? It would even make sense to a screen reader just to read it straight through, but you do need to do 2 things inside Word to make this work. First off, if you go to the Design tab in the Table Tools, you're in Table Tools, you pick Design, be sure that you have checked off that you've got that header row up there. You'll notice my header row is module, topic, and due dates. Okay? That's my header row. And you also want in the layout of the tables to tell the application to repeat header rows. That means that, let's say you start your table 2/3 of the way down the page and it extends to another page. It will then show that header on the next page, and the screen reader needs to have that so that every page that's got that table has the same header row. Okay.
Jennifer,
Yes.
can you turn on that repeat header row functions on all of your tables, regardless of if they go to a new page, just to have it like safe, so as you're editing, if a table were to be pushed down, it'll just automatically happen? Or does the,
By default,
yeah, like,
not that I know of.
well, I mean, like when I build the table, if I were to say repeat header rows when I built it,
Mhm.
would that information stay there, or does it have to be, do I have to employ it only when it's crossing pages?
Oh, okay. Barry, I think I know.
So it's like as a work process.
Okay, Barry's asking if you've got a table, tell me if I'm wrong when I say this. If you've got a table and you create the table in your document, will it and you choose your repeat header rows, will it automatically
Will it retain that information?
go?
Yes.
Okay, yes, it absolutely will keep that. Unless you go back and you select repeat header rows again and turn it off.
Mhm.
So as long as you've got that turned on for that table, every page that it goes to will have that header row in the table. Yes.
Thank you.
Next is images that you have to think about, digital documents. And this one, if you have learned anything about accessibility, this may have been the first thing. That if you've got an image in an HTML page or in your document, you're supposed to put alternative text in. Now, a lot of people take this to mean, okay, I've just got to see kind of what it looks like, and I'm just going to throw some words in. So they might go to this, And, I mean, they could be as simple as writing something like, man on boat, okay? That's not adequate, okay? When you do alternative text for images, you're supposed to think about the context. What does it have to do with the content, okay? So this image, which is of Washington and the group crossing the Potomac River, you could describe this in a number of ways, depending on why you're using this image. If it's a course on art, you might be talking about the lighting. You want to keep the description short, so think of it sort of as a tweet But you might talk about painting, showing the contrast of light in the background to the foreground or something. I don't know much about art, you might say that. But if you had a course on wars and history, it might make good sense just to say, this is Washington crossing the Potomac, whatever. Something simple, but that your students would realize this is part of the history class. So it all depends on the context. The same goes if you have here, this. I mean, you could put this in some document you're giving to students. If it's a child development class, it could be child topples over tricycle due to balance inadequacies, okay? But if it's a course on driver safety, it would be child toppling over tricycle in the middle of the road. I mean, it all depends on what it is that the context is, okay? So you have to think about that. And I've seen some atrocious alt text, and I have written some atrocious alt text just because I was thinking, okay, that's a rule. I'm supposed to put alt text in. It's a federal rule, I've got to put this in. But I didn't think about what the meaning of that image really was. Now I try to put a little bit more into it. And as Penn State says on their webpage, and they have a really good website for accessibility since they got into legal trouble a few years ago, they say a good rule of thumb is to include what you might relay over the phone. So if you were actually maybe reading this syllabus to somebody and there were an image here, what would you say that person on the phone to describe what that image was? Finally, things to consider includes color. The color in your syllabus or in whatever document you're looking at. We talked about the fact that color contrast can be an issue. I'm going to show you a little bit of that right now with that second syllabus where it has all that shading in the background with that box, and then you've got the text and it's hard to see. You can use tools, one of which is called the Color Contrast Analyzer. And I can send you guys links to some good resources later that can help you with this. There's a tool called the Color Contrast Analyzer. It's manufactured by the Casiello Group. It's free. There are other ones out there. This one I find to be really good because it's got a little eyedropper tool. You just drop your eyedropper on color, picks up that code, picks up the other code, and compares the two. And it will tell you whether or not there's adequate color contrast. To meet the WCAG 2.0 guidelines, which are not a law to follow, but they are going to be aligning with Section 508 federal standards beginning in January, so you kind of do have to know a little bit about this. But if you look at the bottom of the box, you'll see that this particular combination of the dark gray and the light gray fails everything. So you should never use this color combination because people with low vision can't see what that says. The same goes with using color to instruct. If you're telling students, for instance, in the schedule from the syllabus, if I said there on the second line, you must complete the assignments in red. Okay, now on the document, if that were in color, if I printed this in color, that would actually be red for those of us who can see the color red. For somebody who's colorblind, a specific kind of colorblind, they will never see red. And in fact, for some people who are colorblind, they wouldn't even see these other colors. Everything would be black and white. So you can't be telling students or your audience, do this based on a specific color, knowing that 5% of the male population is colorblind. It's not going to work really well for them. So just keep that in mind. You can tell them, do this in red, do these things that are in red, and also that are, that have an exclamation point to the side or have this icon with them. But don't just say, you have to do this in red, or you have to do this.
Question, Jennifer.
Uh-huh.
Does a screen reader pick up the fact the line's colored or not?
No, screen readers typically will not pick up color. There is a setting, like I said earlier, there are some settings that users can go into to get that, but the typical default settings, they will never tell them if there's color there. Okay, a couple of things, and this is in Microsoft Word and Windows. I'm not so sure about Mac. There's an accessibility checklist that can come in really, really handy. It won't check everything, so don't think it's going to be your savior. Just like when Ally from Blackboard comes out, don't think that that tool is going to save your life either, because it will not pick up every issue that's going on with accessibility. But it's going to pick out some very basic things. If I'm in Windows, this is the page I would see if I go to the info page, which is one step back from your basic Canvas in Word. You'll see something called Inspect Document, check for issues, and check accessibility. And if I check the accessibility for the document number 2 that I gave you, once I press those buttons, I'll get an accessibility checker on the right-hand side. And it's going to list for me any errors, obvious errors, basic errors that exist. It's going to list some warnings, and it's going to list possibly some tips for me. The errors are things that I absolutely have to fix. The warnings are things that probably I'm going to need to fix. And tips are just kind of, this may help you in the future, just to know this. In this case, you'll see with the document that I gave you, number 2, there is an obvious error saying there are no headers in this document. So if you really want your screen reader users to see headings, you got to add some headings. There are some warnings, and these are pretty necessary things to fix too. It's listing the 2 text boxes that are not in line. Those are the ones I just inserted text boxes. Basically, they're sitting on separate layers. And it's saying, okay, that's an issue. The screen reader's going to have issues. So I would go back and reformat those as basic text and then using quick styles. And then I change my style to whatever I wanted. And there's also a warning here that there are repeated blank characters. It's important. We've all done this, I'm sure. If you're typing along and you say, oh, I need some extra space between our paragraphs. So I'll just hit enter 3 extra times and get that extra space. The screen reader will announce all these spaces. And if you put too many spaces in, the user is going to think, I'm done with the document. There's nothing else to be read. So they're going to stop reading. So if you've got 15 blank characters or 15 blank lines sitting there, they're probably not going to read the full document because they're going to think it's over. So this will tell you if you've got too many blank characters. If there are only 2, I think it won't list them. But once you get up to 4 or so, it's going to list them. And you just get rid of them, and then you format properly using quick styles. If there are tips, it will list it. This document didn't have any tips. The other thing that's really nice in Microsoft Word is you can go to the View tab and look for, here toward the top is navigation pane. And if you click that on, it will show you what all your headings are. So assuming you've added headings, and this is document number 3, it's listing all my headings, and it's even showing me indentations where I've got subheadings. So I've got header level 1, header level 2s, header level 3s, and so on. And then I can kind of go through that and determine, have I actually set my headers at the levels they're supposed to be, and I can make my changes there, which is really nice. Are there questions? Because I'm pretty close to the end, which is kind of shocking to me.
So if I'm making an existing syllabus accessible for the first time, do I need to just throw it away and start over?
No, you can, if you've already got it pretty much typed up, just simply go back and find where you want your headers to be, and then use your quick styles to make those true headers. Now, when you go to quick styles, I think in my little video, I was highlighting and going into quick styles. You can actually just click in the header, once you've got the header created, and if you want to make it say a different level, then you go up to quick styles and change it. To make your initial header, you're going to want to highlight it and click the header level. But yeah, and then body text, you'll just highlight what you want, make it normal or body text, whatever the style is. But no, I mean, if you've already got it written, you can pretty easily fix it. You know? And using accessibility checker is going to show you pretty much where to start.
So on an image, I understand that you would right click and it would be an alternate text,
Yes.
and you'd be inserting your description in that field.
Mm-hmm.
Would it be possible to go under the image, not insert a box, because I know that readers would not read a box that you inserted underneath the image. But can you click under the image? You know how typically in a slide you have a box already? Could you go in underneath the image and type and have
A caption?
Yeah, like a caption,
Okay.
instead of alternate text or inserting a text box.
Okay. So you're talking about inserting images, and you know how to insert the alternative text, and you want to insert something that would be like a caption.
Mhm.
There actually is a caption option for inserting a caption.
Mhm.
So like in the table slide I showed you, it's pretty similar to that. Find it here. Here, in this table, up at the top, the caption's gonna look similar to that. There is an option for doing that. And I should say, and I didn't before, when you're adding alternative text to an image, depending on how you do it, in the latest version of Microsoft Word, there actually is a place that says alt text, and you just go there. But you can also go to size and position, and there's an option there. When you bring that option up, there's an option for adding a title and adding a description. The one you want to add is the description. Okay? You can put both in, but screen readers do not always read the title. So always be sure you fill out the description. And in fact, I think even in Blackboard, when you're working on adding image, you've got two options: to add a title and to add a description. And I basically ignore title simply because it's not that useful. The description field is what gets read.
Okay, so then all I have to do is put a description. I don't have to do both alt text and a description.
Well, the description is
the alt text, okay.
Yes,
But the
yes.
description will pop up underneath the image, right?
It's not going to pop up, it's what's going to be read to the screen reader. If you want a caption, that is another option whenever you go to work with that image. And I can't remember exactly where it is, but you don't have to create your own. There is a selection of inserting a caption.
Will the screen reader read the caption?
Which I believe so.
So then I could just do a caption. And so the screen reader and my site
No, you
students.
always, in a Word document, you have to put the alt text in. Yeah. That's the rule, you have to. Yeah. Yes, Barry.
I understand you're saying like the text boxes fit as a layer, and that's one of the issues.
That's one way to say it.
And that's one of the issues with the reader. I was wondering if there is alt text, like if you can alt text the text box.
I think you might, I'm not sure. You can a table, and in fact, you're supposed to do alt text for a table, a short description of what the table is. As far as text boxes, I don't know, but it doesn't matter because the screen reader's not going to read it anyway. It's not going to see it.
Right, because it's
So
on
it
that
can't
different
read
layer.
anything related to it.
Okay.
PowerPoints aren't accessible then. I mean, our PowerPoints.
PowerPoint runs on a pretty similar scheme as Word in terms of it's, I don't believe you've got the quick styles, but it does, you put alt text into images the same way, inserting tables. I can't remember if that works the same way, but the rules are very similar. And you do have to be careful with PowerPoint because most of the time I see people put images in and just they completely forget about that. And if you expect if those images have meaning, then anybody should be able to to understand what they mean. And if you don't put alt text in, you're missing the whole thing. Now, you should also, I think inserting text boxes in PowerPoint runs the same way. The screen reader's not going to read it. So you need to use one of the styles that Microsoft, the layouts that Microsoft offers. As long as you're using one of those layouts, it's going to read it. But if you start inserting, I'm going to insert my own text boxes and just ignore all these other layouts, you're totally, because I've done that a couple of times, and now I'm looking back thinking, man, I miss those points.
I have a question from Tammy. Can we assume the same caption issues for images is inclusive of the smart art, shapes, etc. that can be inserted?
Word art and that kind of thing, unless things have changed recently, they are not accessible to screen. So if you insert word art, you should insert alt text with that word art. Yeah, anything that can get alt text should get alt text.
Any more questions? Thank you, Jennifer.
Jennifer, what do you want us to do with these?
Just leave them and I'll resolve them.